Right, hello there everybody. Welcome back to Provo Pre-Med. Specifically, I'm making these videos to try to help BYU pre-med students. Let's just go ahead and get into it. I know you are super busy and I don't want to waste any time. So the video today that we're going to be exploring and going over, the topic is our extracurriculars, service, and research as a pre-med at BYU. We're going to be talking specifically about what are the hours and the numbers you should try to be hitting in all of your extracurricular activities, and some more specifics on how to get some of these experiences. So the biggest problem that we have with ECs is that if you go on Reddit or you talk to some of your friends, you'll hear them say something to the effect of that they have tons of hours in a bunch of different categories, and maybe they got accepted or maybe they didn't get accepted. And either way, that doesn't really help you that much, and it can kind of discourage you a bit, because if somebody with tons of hours in every category gets accepted, then maybe that makes you feel like you have to hit those numbers or you don't have a snowball's chance in a blast furnace. But then on the other hand, if they have tons of hours and they didn't get accepted, then that makes you feel like, okay, if they didn't get those hours, then I definitely don't have a snowball's chance in a blast furnace, so maybe I should just give up. So this is not necessarily an exhaustive list, but these are 100% the ECs, your extracurriculars, the research, the service that you need to hit if you're going to be competitive. The most important thing, whether you're applying to MD or DO school, is to have experiences that are quality over quantity. You get 15 experiences to put on your application on AMCAS as of the recording of this video. Maybe one day that will change, but 15 experiences seems like a lot, and then at the same time it doesn't really seem like a lot. So whatever you're doing, just aim for quality. That's the most important thing. The DO application is very similar, so aim for the same amount of experiences. When I say similar, when I applied to DO school, you basically had an unlimited amount of things you could put into your application. But again, why would you just put a million things on your application? That's just not a good idea. You should just try to have those quality experiences that really show impact. So quickly go over these, try to review them. The big thing that I want to point out to you is when it comes to hours, 300 hours is a lot. People think that 300 hours is not a lot because you're talking to your friends or you're looking on Reddit, but 300 hours is a lot of time. Medical students are notoriously bad at tracking their hours, and so they end up exaggerating or overestimating how many hours they think they have for something. And if you put too many hours on your application, it's going to kind of be a red flag, because it either means you made a massive mistake when you were inputting your numbers, or it means that you're basically lying, because people can do math and they know that if you are applying to medical school after only having 3 years of some sort of undergrad education or experience, and you're putting that you have 10,000 hours in one category and 2,000 hours in another, and then 2,000 hours in another category, it's going to show that you probably didn't do that, because there's only so many hours in the day and you have to sleep and go to school full time and do all these other things you say that you're doing. So it's really not feasible for you to have thousands and thousands of hours in every single category. You can't do that without taking 1 or 2 gap years. And we'll talk later about gap years. But basically try to hit these numbers. Research in any science is important. It can be the social sciences, it can be in the hard sciences, it really doesn't matter. It just needs to be in some sort of science where you're obviously testing a hypothesis. It's okay. In either one of those is helpful and interesting. What you should do for this, it's difficult to say, but you need to do at least a full year to be most competitive, as in 2 full semesters. Some people say you'll be fine if you'll do one summer spring internship or something like that. I highly disagree with that. 3 months doing something is not very much time, and you're not going to be able to show as much impact in 3 months as you can in an entire year, or something like 8 months, for example, 8 or 9 months. So really try to do a full year in this, at least, to be competitive. This is at least. When I was at BYU, I did 3 years. I worked in an organic chemistry lab. I feel like I had a really great experience doing that, and that was 3 full years in that lab. So try to do 1 full year. If you do 1 full year or more, it's going to be much easier for you to get poster presentation and oral presentation opportunities. And just to be competitive, it's great to put these on your application because, again, it shows impact. You were there long term. You worked hard enough to be able to speak competently about your project or the master's or PhD student who you were assisting, your primary investigator, all that sort of stuff. So try if you do a year at least of research, you're going to have an opportunity at BYU to do one of those, and those are things you can put on your app, and would be really good. Publications are controversial because they're basically completely out of your control sometimes. When I applied, I barely missed being able to put a publication on my application. I just, 3 months later, I would have been able to put it on there, but I wasn't able to, and that was completely out of my control. I have lots of friends at prestigious medical universities, several of them, and a couple of them had no publications at all. And then I have friends who had 1 or 2 publications, didn't get accepted the first time, had to take a gap year, do something else. The publication is not going to make or break your application. If you can get it, great, but you don't have to. Leadership experiences, try to get 3 experiences of leadership. This can sort of be what you want it to be, but I've listed some examples there. Try to get 3 leadership experiences. I didn't put hours there because that, again, is sort of subjective when you're a leader, but you're probably, to really have impact in a leadership experience, you're probably going to need 50 to 100 hours of that per experience. Community service, not related to medicine, right? Non-clinical community service is what you might hear that being described sometimes. You need 1 to 2 experiences of 300 hours total. 300 hours is a lot of hours, everybody. You just need to keep that in mind. Anybody who says that 300 hours isn't that much, that 300 hours is a lot. That's volunteering very consistently, weekly, to get an experience. Community service related to medicine, right? Some sort of clinical experience. Try to aim for 300 to 600 hours, 1 to 2 experiences, right? 2 experiences, 300 hours each, or 1 experience, 600 hours. That will make you very competitive. Keep in mind that most nurse practitioners and PAs, people who are applying to those programs, they need to already have at least 1,000 hours of experience before they apply. And that makes a lot of sense. They usually need to apply it with more clinical hours because they're going to jump right into the workforce. Whereas if you're going to apply to medical school, you're here for the long haul. You have 4 years of medical school. You have who knows how many years after that of residency and fellowship. So they know that if you're doing this experience, you don't need to have 10,000 hours or 6,000 hours of clinical experience because you're already going to be here for the long haul. And your job as a physician is going to be very different from a PA or a nurse practitioner. It just is. It's going to be. You don't need paid medical experience. And the reason is because sometimes getting that experience just depends on your circumstance and how much money you have at your disposal. Because to be a scribe or an EMT usually costs money. You have to take some sort of class in order to do that. And just the fact is, not everybody can afford to go pay for a CNA course. And then after that, not everyone has time to even be the CNA on top of taking the course. So this is not necessary. Again, at BYU, you will meet tons of people who say that they're, an EMT or that they're some sort of tech in a hospital or something like that, that's great for them, but you do not need to feel like you need this in order to get into medical school. So if you can get it, great, but don't feel like you have to if you don't want to spend the money, if you just don't have it. Shadowing is a weird check the box, because you'll meet some people who say you need tons of hours of shadowing, and then you'll meet some people who say you don't really need to. The biggest thing is you should try to get 80 to 100 hours shadowing different physicians, not all at once. So if you can shadow for 20 hours every single year of medical school, give or take, then that's good. Because you want to show commitment. You want to show that you didn't just check this box and that you were actively trying to learn more about the profession. So if you've shadowed 4 different physicians and you got 25 hours with them each, or you shadowed one for a week and you shadowed another for 2 days or something like that, that's fine. But you need to try to hit 100 hours of shadowing. Hobby, one good hobby is sufficient. You don't want to put a ton of hobbies on your application because it makes it look like you're padding. When I say hobby, I'm talking about a good hobby. A hobby is not something that you do every 6 months because you just don't have the time. That's not really a decent hobby. So if you say you want to your hobby or one of your passions is mountain biking, but you mountain bike every 6 months when you have the time, that's really not much of a hobby. A hobby is something that you're going to do kind of consistently. Maybe it's once a week, every 2 weeks, something like that. And again, so what I'm saying is it needs to be one of those hobbies, because if you say I have a hobby of this and you put 50 hours on your application, that's nothing. That 50 hours is, I spend 50 hours a week just studying, right? At least. It's just not that good of a hobby if you put something like that. So try to make it good. You don't need paid employment because, again, it just depends on who you are. But if you do have paid employment, there's no harm in putting anything like that on your application, because you had to pay the bills somehow. You had to pay for your tuition, your rent, everything like that. Don't feel bad about it at all. I had one paid experience, I think, paid employment that had nothing to do with my application, right? Had nothing to do with medicine. I believe it was, I was a construction worker. I put that on my application because it's just what I had done. And, okay, finally, tutoring, being a TA. BYU makes this really easy for you to get one of these experiences. So there's no reason why you shouldn't have it. And it's basically a good experience because you can either do it for free or you can get paid for it. And this also, I mean, depending on how you channel that experience, it can also sort of be a leadership experience too. So you need to have at least one experience where you're tutoring people in something or you're a TA. And again, BYU has tons of classes and tons of ways to make this possible. So you need to hit at least one of these for 150 hours, and you can definitely do that. Okay, now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, how to specifically get research at BYU. I remember when I was there, I asked myself this question because I thought, how do I actually get research? Because when I would go online, or if you look at pre-professional advisement, they sort of give you very generic, a generic overview of how to get it. And you can get that anywhere. It's really not very in-depth. It's just sort of the same. Go find someone you're interested in and annoy them and ask them if they have any openings and try to, basically show interest or fake interest in something if you don't have it. Research is rough, everybody, but it's basically a requirement now to have some sort of research project or to be involved in it in some way when you apply. Yes, there are people out there who say that they didn't do any research and they got into school. There are always people like that. But so many people are doing some sort of research now that you do not want to be the odd person out. So try to get it done. And you can do it at BYU. There are 2 options, and I recommend one of them or both. You can do either or, right? You can do this. The first option is similar to what people have told you. You think of classes that you enjoy, specifically try to find classes that you did well in, that you got an A in, and then you find those professors' research websites. You can look and see if they have research openings. Sometimes they advertise that. And then specifically, you have to figure out if they have a history of helping pre-med undergrad students specifically. You need to know if they're helping pre-meds, because if they're not, it's a waste of your time and theirs for you to go in and ask if they have any research openings. Another way to sort of squeeze in is if you already are TAing for them and you've done it for a semester or two, and they have a lab in the life sciences that they do some sort of project and you're sort of interested in it. Maybe you took a class from them, you did well. This is a good way to sort of bring that up casually and say, hey, so I'm also interested in research. I've been TAing for you for a little bit. Do you have any openings? And he or she knows you, right? Because you've been TAing for them, and they can help you get in, basically. I'm giving you some more specifics here for how to do it at BYU at the bottom. So if you go to the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry section, I want you to look at the Chemigram magazine, and you look at the Student Spotlight section of this magazine. They publish it. You can just scroll through it, read the other parts, and see what faculty are actively helping pre-med students. And you can usually see that in the Student Spotlight. Tons of students at BYU are pre-med. So that helps you narrow down your search sometimes, and it helps you see, okay, most professors are probably helping students in some way. They have a pre-med in their lab, but some labs are more, I don't want to say necessarily prestigious, though that's true, but some labs have a higher barrier to entry than others. Some professors will really make you work for it and show and prove yourself in order to get into their lab. And others won't. Others are more laid back, and they understand that pre-meds are trying to get experience, and they have a process for you to get in, and it's pretty laid back. And then once you see that, contact them, because you know that they're helping pre-meds because you saw it in the Chemigram magazine. Contact them, go by their office hours, and see what the process is. And then you can sort of help narrow down your search and figure out what type of commitment they're looking at. For the BYU Life Sciences, you basically do the same thing. And again, at the bottom here, I already sort of talked about it. Specifically, Dr. Kim O'Neill, I know, is somebody at BYU who I've met lots of BYU students who kind of go to him because his lab is more prestigious, and he does help out pre-med students, but his lab is a little bit more intense, and there's more of a barrier to entry to get into it. So you have to keep that in mind. There are professors like that who will require a lot of you to do it. So you just got to keep that in mind, because it may not be worth it for you. It just depends on your situation. If you're going to do research, be sure that you show up and you work hard and you do not flake out of it, because this is a big commitment usually to do research at BYU. And if you're one of those silly, flimsy pre-med students who comes in, you're all wishy-washy, you're incompetent, you don't show up on time, you don't learn the protocols, the procedures, the sterile technique, whatever it is you're doing, and then you flake out at some point and say, oh, well, I got a bad grade on my physics test, so I have to quit your lab, then that's just silly. Don't do it. Don't do research at BYU until you are ready to really put in, 10 to 20 hours a week in the evening, in the morning, whatever it is, just a couple hours every day, 3 hours every day, whatever it is, to really put time into this lab, because that will stick out. If you work hard, it will stick out to your PI, your primary investigator, and it will stick out to the master's student or the PhD student who might be taking you under his or her wing or showing you what to do, or you're helping their project. If you're one of those flaky med students, they are going to really not like you. Also, make sure that you go through the prerequisites for whatever the lab is. Sometimes they have it published on certain websites. They say, oh, for you to be in this lab, we want you to take immunology and these other courses or something like that. Make sure you've taken them, even if it says optional. If you go and look at any lab and it says, oh, it's just optional if you take this, still take it anyway, and then show up to office hours or to meet this professor in person. Do not just assume that you're special and you don't have to do these requirements. You can't assume that. And then remember that there are lots of pre-meds at BYU and so many of them do something with research. So it might make you sweat and it might make you nervous to go knock on a professor's door and talk to this person and basically beg them to take you, right? That is really nerve-wracking. That is not fun. But keep in mind that most faculty at BYU, they have done this for years and years and years. They know the drill. If you're going to be at BYU, you're going to be mentoring students. That's part of the job of a professor if you're tenured and everything like that. And you're going to be writing letters of rec for students. They're going to ask you. This is just the way it is. They've come to grips with it. They've accepted it. The worst thing they can tell you is no, sorry, I'm full, or you're not qualified yet, or you're, I don't know, or come back in a couple years and check with me or something. That's the worst thing they can say. Thank them for their time, and then walk out. That's it. There are no stakes here. Here's a couple of screenshots to sort of guide you. On the left, you can see the chemigram icon down there. That's what you need to find and click on. And then for the life sciences program, go to the page for departments, look at their research and mentored research opportunities, and you can sort of narrow down the things that you might be interested in. Okay, the second option I highly recommend because it basically hands you research on a silver platter if you're at BYU, and that is the BYU Phage Hunters program. The great thing about this is that you do not have to be a life science major in order to participate in this program. I participated in this program as well, and I was not a life sciences major. I was a humanities major, and I still did this, and it was a great experience. What it basically is it's MM Bio 194. It's a class that you sign up for, and it's a 2-semester commitment. You work in groups, in teams, on different projects, and you learn about bacteriophage, and you learn about bacteriophage, and then you develop and work on a project relating to the bacteriophage. And then you get your research together, and you usually make some sort of poster presentation or oral presentation in the winter semester, and you'll present it somewhere. That's usually what happens. Years vary. It doesn't matter. The point is, this is an amazing program because you jump through all the hoops instantly without having to sweat. You don't have to go in and ask professors if they'll take you. This program just takes you. You can just check it out, and you can get hands-on research experience, and you get a chance to have a poster presentation, and it's a 2-semester commitment. You work. When I did the Phage Hunters program, I believe I probably did at least, 6-7 hours a week, maybe. It depends. Maybe it was 10 hours a week is what I put into it. It was decent. You sometimes come in on the weekends if you're going to help some of your teammates do things. So there's a lot of room here for collaboration, a lot of great stuff. I highly, highly, highly recommend this. Some will say this doesn't count somehow because you received a letter grade in it from a class, but that doesn't make any sense. This 100% counts as legitimate research. Some people will take this class and get their work published in a legitimate paper. They'll get their bacteriophage genome that they've sequenced put in a paper. It doesn't get better than that, and you get a chance to sometimes possibly become a TA or become part of the Phage Hunters lab afterwards. So there is a lot of possibilities for doing this. I cannot stress how awesome this is. As long as it's at BYU, I will donate money to it because I want more students to have this opportunity. I know I sound like a broken record, but if you want a research experience and you don't have time to go shifting through a bunch of professors' work on the BYU campus, this is a great way to just get it. And I hate to say check the box because that makes it sound like you're doing something that's not organic, but this is amazing. You should definitely do this. For service at BYU, BYU's YServe department is amazing because it has so much infrastructure and it has so many opportunities The best thing to do here is try to commit to one thing that you really enjoy, put decent effort towards it once a week, twice a week, whatever it is. After you've done that for a semester or something, see if you can apply to be a program director. And then after that, you can apply to be a lead program director, and then see if you want to be a member of the service council, right? There is growth potential here. And remember that quality is more important than quantity. So doing 10 different clubs is just kind of silly. There's just no point in doing 10 hours at this club, 10 hours at that club, unless somehow it really fits your passions. But you really shouldn't have to do that. Just do 1 or 2 clubs that you really enjoy, put good effort in them, see if you can be a program director, because then all of a sudden you get a leadership experience out of it. It's pretty simple to do this. It's really straightforward. Please go do it. Clinical medicine is, I think it's kind of hard sometimes because no one knows really where to start. But I'm going to break it down here, and I'm going to say that basically if it's service related, there's not a ton of options that you have, but there are several options that are really good, and you just have to try to find them. These are the ones that I recommend because they don't cost you money. Crisis text line is a great opportunity. You go through a training, but then the service is free, and you can basically do it whenever you want on your own time. It is a great experience to sort of talk to people going through mental health and severe challenges and crises. It is really, really quite amazing. I have done it. I think it's really interesting. I've also done hospice. You do training in order to do that, but then once you get the training done, you just have to do, a yearly TB screen. It's an amazing experience. I can't talk enough about hospice because it's free. It doesn't cost you tons of money to get some sort of certification in order to be a hospice volunteer. It's so great. And I highly recommend you look into that if you're looking for something that will give you hands-on contact with patients. And then the last one is very typical, and everybody's heard of it, volunteering at a hospital. You may have to do some sort of training or submitting vaccine records and stuff, but there are lots of hospitals in the Wasatch Front. There's hospitals, obviously, in your home state, back home, wherever it is. There are ways to get volunteering at a hospital. It's okay. It's if that's something that you really feel like is easiest for you, go ahead and volunteer at a hospital. Again, this is quality over quantity. Try to do it consistently. Everyone's going to be different. Maybe you have to volunteer at a hospital every single summer or spring, summer. You go back home, you volunteer at your local hospital or clinic or something like that. That's all great. Just keep it up. Paid clinical experience is hard because we've already talked about that. And I'm not going to belabor the point too much because we've already talked about how money is basically needed if you're going to do this. I've just listed some examples here of things you're interested in. CNA, phlebotomy, psych tech, EMT, medical assistant, scribe. Medical students do these experiences all the time. One of them is not better than the other. You'll hear people say that the EMT course at BYU or something like that is the best thing ever and your experience is amazing. I'm sure it is, but not everybody can afford it. Not everybody has time for it. So don't feel like you need to do it just because you have a friend who was an EMT for like 3 years and they got into a million medical schools, that doesn't mean you're going to get in also just because you were an EMT. There is no golden ticket experience that instantly makes committees accept you. This does not exist. They are looking holistically at applicants. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is I have met students at BYU who think that working as a cook at a soup kitchen or an assisted living center or working at the BYU Chem Labs or inorganic chem lab or chem store counts as some kind of experience that relates to research or patients, and it definitely does not. You might get paid to do it, might be a good paid experience, but unless you're actually testing a hypothesis or you're in the room touching the patient or directly interacting with patients, this does not count. Keep that in mind, because when you start to apply and you think that you're going to be good because you did one of these experiences, you were a secretary somewhere at a hospital or something like that, you think you're good because you worked in a hospital. The answer is no. They're going to look at that and say, this is not clinical experience. You were not directly involved with patient care. Shadowing is really rough to complete because it's passive, but it's kind of a check-the-box experience, even though we try to make it seem like it's not, but it kind of is. The best way to do this is shadow people you know first. If your parents are nurses or in the medical field, see if they have friends at the hospital or somewhere who are willing to just shadow you for a day. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It's not a big commitment. See if you can shadow your pediatrician growing up, whatever your physician was growing up. See if you can shadow people from your ward or stake. People you know, that's the best thing, and that's the best way to do it. If there's somehow no way for you to do this, then you can cold call physicians or look into virtual shadowing, which is a opportunity. You just have to Google it and find it, and you can sign up for it. There are virtual shadowing opportunities that do count. So just try to get it done, either in person or virtual. There are ways to do it. And finally, the hobby. We've talked about the hobby, so I'm not going to talk anymore about that. Tutoring is straightforward. The best way to do this is, I think, if you have an A or a good grade in a class and you would be interested in TAing for it, you can obviously go to the professor directly and ask them about it. Sometimes they have openings, sometimes they don't. If the professor knows you and likes you, then that's a great door. So I'd walk through it. But if you don't have that, then it's really not that big of a deal. In the BYU chemistry, biochemistry page and the BYU life sciences page, you can go click on their tabs to become a teaching assistant, and you can fill out applications for it. And that's really simple. And then you just wait. And yeah, you may not get one eventually, but professors need help with their classes all throughout the year, but especially during spring, summer, because a lot of students have left and gone back home, but they're still teaching some of their courses, especially their freshman level courses. So spots do open up all the time. So if you're going to stick around BYU for spring, summer, which sometimes you maybe should, depending on what your activities are and what your plans are for the summer, this is a great time to do it and submit it, because the odds are there's going to be a BYU chemistry or life sciences professor somewhere who needs one tutor or needs another TA, or they need two TAs and they're missing one or something like that to help them with their class during the spring or summer. And that's a great way to help a professor out. It's a great way to build a relationship with them, possibly get a letter. And if you've TA'd for them once and done a good job, odds are you can go back to them again and say, hey, can I TA for you again in this class? And they're going to say, oh yeah, well, I really appreciate what you did before to help me. And I'll pull some strings for you, right? They will do this if you stick your neck out for them and if you try to be a good TA for them. So it's pretty simple to do. Just fill out those pages, fill out those applications, and then wait. And make sure you have, an A or 2 or 3 A's in related subjects so that they know that you can teach it. Final thoughts are, there are lots of opportunities on the BYU campus for your experiences. Explore them. There are tons of things to do. Explore your passions. Don't feel like if you're going to be in BYU men's choir, that's not a good experience, because it's not related to medicine. It is a great experience. Don't feel like if you're some sort of a thespian, right? Or some sort of an actor and you're on the stage a lot at BYU and you're, in some sort of drama production, that's somehow a bad thing because it's not related to medicine. Also, no, it's great. It's all great. Look around, find things that you're passionate about and interested in about. Get involved in clubs that you actually love and things that you actually do. This will make you stand out more than anything else. Things that you love and actually put dedication into. And by the time you're done, you will have done a lot of things. So don't feel sheepish or shy about things on the BYU campus. Go out there and do lots of experiences that you love. Don't feel like they all have to be related to medicine. They definitely do not. All right. We will see you in the next video.